Welcome to another cannot miss special edition of Saturday Morning Live with Sal Santori, the afternoon edition. And I am here with our great friend and guest, Jordan Purcell, Sergeant First Class Purcell. Arr! and, and we're going to come back to Sergeant First Class Purcell in just a minute. But first of all, I just want to take some time and, as always, welcome our greatest global of all time family of viewers and listeners to today's show. And today, as I mentioned, we have another truly cannot miss show for everyone. And as always, we begin by welcoming our newest community members, along with new family members. And I am amazed each week. I really am. I'm telling you, it's not me. It's just amazing how each week we get to welcome new community members, new family members, and it's incredible the growth that we're having. I wish I could explain everything that we have coming up. It would take 2 hours, then everybody be like, well, wait a second, what does Jordan have to say?
Yeah.
Which is very, very important, by the way. Your experience that you're sharing with us is going to be phenomenal. Just to explain this hat, ladies and gentlemen, this gorgeous hat, which makes me so handsome. I know, the radio face of all radio faces. I'm going to be on Mount Crushmore.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got the Uncle Buck hat on. So, yeah.
Put me right there on Mount Crushmore. But this hat, folks, I'm wearing it because it is from our great friend, Mr. Pat Garrett, who is, obviously a lot of folks will know him from the music world. He records live, down in Nashville, records albums and puts them out. He also has the Pat Garrett Amphitheater, which he and his cousin Johnny built. They didn't hire contractors to come in. They actually built it, along with Pat's sons. And they got that done just before I came on the scene because, they knew once I got there, everything would have to change.
Sure. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's Taylor Swift's first concert was at the Pat Garrett Amphitheater.
It wasn't so much their first concert there, but Pat actually gave her start.
Isn't that wild?
At the Roadhouse, yeah.
Wow. So,
yeah, it was at the Pat Garrett Roadhouse, and her and her father used to come up and do karaoke.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever mentioned this to anyone, but I used to wonder, why is this guy bringing this 13-year-old girl to the Pat Garrett Roadhouse to do karaoke? To me, it was like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Well, I didn't know, what the master plan was, and this was a great way and a safe way, for her to get some experience, a little bit of exposure to a small crowd, at 13, 12, that's perfect, and it was a safe atmosphere. So, she really I actually got to do a couple of duets with her. She didn't realize it was with the great Sal Santori at the time, but it was great. And then on from there, Pat plays every year at Knoebels Grove up at the amusement park in Ellisburg. He always draws a great crowd for that. And he invited Taylor to come and perform there. And that was kind of like her stepping out, I guess. The outside, no walls, no 20 people limit. This was, the great theater experience, and from there, as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, quite a history she's made. Wow.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
If only you were wearing that hat when she was at Knoebels.
So, you know what? I did have another hat on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you might have seen it in one of my other videos. It's a green bowler.
Oh.
And I wore it when I did the St. Patty's Day special.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, 2 years ago, and then I re-aired it this St. Patty's Day. But I was going to interview with Pat for St. Patty's Day because, for some reason, I loved him so much when I met him. I just endeared him and changed his name to Paddy McGarity.
Oh,
okay. I made an Irishman of him.
There you go. So, absolutely, yeah.
So Paddy McGarity was his new name. And so when St. Patty's Day came around last year, 2024, I decided, well, what a perfect time to interview Pat. So I went out and I got this really cool green Irish bowler for St. Patty's Day, and unfortunately Pat had a little bit of illness that didn't leave as quickly as he'd hoped. So he had to, reschedule it, let me know. So I went ahead and I did a monologue anyway, and in it, the monologue, I talked about Pat, getting to know him, the great guy that he is, the things that he does, the people that he's helped. Pat helps a lot of people, and he's not looking for the thank you, for the attaboy, that he just does it to say, let me help you up because I can. And he's fantastic. He's actually my mentor. So, my viewers and listeners, if you have the complaints, as I always say, just give Pat a call and tell him, hey, you know what, Pat, we got to do something about this Sal Santori guy, and he'll fire me. So be careful what you wish for. But yeah, Pat with the amphitheater, I did a lot of executive close protection work for him, bodyguard. And he had George Jones out there, Eddie Money. Eddie Money was like an idol when I was a kid growing up. To me, Eddie Money was his god on some other planet. I was on stage with Eddie Money, off to the side, of course, but on the same stage and talking with his guitar player and Eddie, and it was just amazing to be there.
Yeah.
And then George Jones, a lot of other folks that came. Charlie Daniels. Charlie Daniels was there. Charlie was such an awesome guy. Awesome guy. He invited Pat and I onto his tour bus. And we're sitting there like you and I are across the table from Charlie, and we're just talking about, hey, remember that day you went fishing, Charlie? And he's like, that kind of conversation. And it was just amazing, these people who, you could probably say a lot of things could swell their ego. Some of them do. But to be able to visit with the ones who are like, hey, I'm the same as you, we're the same guy. And it's just really beautiful. And Pat had just personality after personality come through the amphitheater. And the couple of years that I was there, I just got to meet some really, really great people. Tanya Tucker, she was out there. And when it was a Saturday morning and everything's kind of being opened up for the day, we're starting to set up, and our bus had pulled in, outloaded and everything. And up on the back part of the stage, I'm walking around, I see this young lady sitting on a picnic table, jeans, t-shirt, and you'll love this. I looked over and I almost said to her, so how is it working with Tanya Tucker?
Oh, okay.
The spirit inside me said, don't say that.
Yes.
Don't say that. I walked over and just said, hi, how are you today? And, just started a conversation. Well, it didn't take me long to realize I was talking with Tanya Tucker.
Tanya Tucker, yes.
It's like, thank God, I listened and I didn't, open face and insert boot. So, but she, she's another person who's like you and I. It's just beautiful, to see the humility of people that realize, their success isn't about them. It's God given, and they get to be chosen as the vessel that God uses for his purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
And to see folks that realize that and don't get it twisted, it's just beautiful. So and Pat, that's going to cost you another $50. No worries. But I guess I should get back to talking about some of our community partners. And one of the folks, we have such great friends, and I never mean to like insinuate one is a greater friend than the other, because I'm just blown away by we have great friends. We keep meeting great people.
Yes.
But I have to tell you about this week's show is sponsored by Be Bear Naturals, produce to products. They bet $5 I would trip over that one. So I lose. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll try it again. But we're sponsored by Be Bear Naturals, produce to products.
Well done.
Thank you. Everything that our wonderful friends at Be Bear Naturals offers and either produces or acquires is totally natural. I was talking with Becky and Josh to learn that, there are no ingredients. This is all um, uh, very pure.
Absolutely.
You know, no additives is what I'm trying to say. Uh, and they have everything from like fresh produce. Like I made a little video clip the other day to let folks know they were coming on as sponsors,
Mhm.
and I just showed their beautiful produce on the on that side of their operation, and then we panned around. I got to visit with Becky for a little bit, and then panned over to their soaps and their oils and creams, and
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
it's all really good, really top notch. Um, I had a bit of a skin, and this is my experience. I had a bit of a skin irritation. Don't you say my face still is. I knew that was coming. I knew it. But I had a bit of a skin irritation, and I talked to Becky and I said, "Do you have anything you might recommend?" And she said, "Well, why don't you try this one for starters?"
Mhm.
And that one for starters was perfect.
Absolutely.
You know, so they really have excellent products, and they're not selling anything. They're just sharing with you their knowledge, and they have the products to back it up.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah.
And they're a local business that supports local businesses like Honey, for example. And the medic in me says, these darn allergies, they're really getting the best of everyone. Did you know that if you take some local honey, knock on wood, that actually helps with your allergies, because the bees go to the flowers have pollen, they go back to the queen. So the honey itself actually does help with allergies.
That's great.
And
That's
I
great.
have countless stories. Again, I don't want to be here 2 hours either, but I use their.
Go ahead. I'm going to take a lunch.
But yes, I can't say enough good things about Bee Bear Naturals, their products, and I use their beard oil. I had an injury myself, and instead of using Neosporin, which I recommend as a medic, but Becky had just the thing for me, and I got to say that Josh fella, he's a pretty cool dude.
Is he?
Yeah, he's
I talk
all right.
to him every now and then.
Yeah. I've known him for 35 years. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on the beard oil.
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned Josh, because he sold me my beard oil.
Oh, okay.
Look what happened.
Are you sure it wasn't disappearing cream? There's a
what?
vanishing cream. That's what.
Okay. I said wrinkles. He probably thought I said crinkles.
Oh,
and let's get rid of your crinkles.
Absolutely, that very well could be.
There I am on Mount Crushmore again.
Yes,
it's great having Jordan on here. That's your name, right? Yeah.
My friends call me Jordan. You can call me Mr. Purcell.
Okay, Sarge. No, it's really great to have you on. It's just so great. I'm taking for granted that our viewers are really enjoying the show as much as we are doing it.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And it's like we just click, and my agent is reaching out to your agent so that you can pay to be my co-host.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, I need the money, brother.
Understood.
Yeah.
I got it.
So yeah, but on a serious note, Jordan and I are kind of looking at some possibilities for co-hosting some shows. I know we have at least 3 more in this series that we're doing, and beyond that, it may very well be a great fit. For Jordan to continue on. He's, I love having him here, and I'm sure you do as well as our viewers. It's just great having you here, brother.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Absolutely. It's all about networking.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. Small world. And
well, also this week, and these are great folks again, Grade A Holloway.
Absolutely. Can't say enough
with
good
Adam
things about
Hummel,
them.
owner out there. Adam and Grade A Holloway are another one of our sponsors for the show. Adam is just a fantastic guy, really personable, and he's one of those guys that you couldn't find a reason to dislike.
Absolutely.
It's just not there. But they will haul anything away for anyone, residential, commercial, and whether it's something small or it's a nice big project, or if it's a deck, let's say that you want to get your deck replaced, and they'll come out and they'll demo the existing one and take it away for you.
Yeah.
So it makes it really, really convenient that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we say in the Army, PT is free. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah. No reason to slack there.
Yeah.
But anyway, to reach Adam and the folks at Grade A Holloway, you want to call 717-571-5430. And again, that number is 571-5430. And give them a call today. Think about what project you may have coming up. And rather than wait till the last minute, give them a call today and mention hearing this on the show. So Adam can invoice me for a 10% discount for the folks that call from the show. And their quality service is always on active duty. Always on active duty. They never take a shortcut or do less than 110%.
I agree with that.
They're really fantastic. Another great partner, actually, she's a wonderful young lady here in the farmers market as well.
Okay.
Relatively new, but I kind of took a look at what she does and how she does it. And her name's Shauna, and she makes the most beautiful, unique, and I have to say, artistically designed cakes and cupcakes. She makes these little mini cakes, like you could say would be like, instead of buying this large sheet cake and you cut it into whatever, she has this single serve, I guess you could say, trays that she'll make a complete cake in. And there you go. You take the whole, for another use of a military term, you take the whole unit, with
one each.
lunch.
Yeah.
Right, one each. Yeah.
Now, Sal, I'm sure everyone's wondering, though, they look good. How do they taste?
I have to confess, they are outstanding.
Absolutely.
They are outstanding.
Absolutely.
She offered a sample to me, and I said, you may wish you hadn't done that. Afterwards, I was right. She said, I don't have any more of those. I'm sorry.
Certainly,
I said, that was so good. I'll be back tomorrow.
You're hooked.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's where they get you.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. She will make them custom order. And as I mentioned, they're very unique. She doesn't have a playbook, so to speak. These are her own creations. And I have to say, that makes it even more special. It's like
they're gourmet and unique, and you don't get that. I mean, you don't get that anywhere else.
You're right.
There's nothing else like this. There are many like it, but this one is mine for sure. Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Another thing I wanted to mention, I want to talk a little bit about our coffee.
Yeah.
You talk about gourmet and unique.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
And that is right. As your name's Jordan again?
That's right, yes.
I was going to wait till after the show. I might be like all bombed up today. Jordan's like, remember that PTE?
Yeah. This will be Sal's last show.
He doesn't know it yet. Sal don't know it yet. Don't tell him. But what Jordan was holding up earlier is our own brand. Okay, we created this brand, Vets Brew, and we have a wonderful brewer. That's our beer that we're coming out with next. We do have an awesome brewer for that as well, but roaster, the bean roaster, and we have both the 8-ounce bag and the K cups, and we have these in a light, medium, and dark roast. So it's such a great flavored coffee. And I don't say that only because Jordan pays me to, but it really has a good flavor, a unique flavor. Like we're looking to get in the grocery stores and into specialty shops and some really high-end eateries, that want to serve our coffee. So we're not really looking to compete with the what are some of those called? Maxwell House or Folgers, right? We're not looking to compete with the mass-produced, very inexpensive brands, which they have their market, they serve their purpose.
Yes.
But this, on the other hand, the whole purpose behind this is the contributions go to support Project Intervene, which is our mission. Our whole brainchild and our whole mission is to reduce and prevent veteran suicide. What we do is we do seminars, and we have a presence here in the farmers market for anyone that needs to come visit. We do have folks that are telling me they've been told to come here to speak with us. So it's working. We are accomplish our mission. That's why I'm saying that. Um, but we do the seminars and public speaking to let people know, how to interpret what you're seeing, because suicide, whether you're a veteran or not, is a process. It's not something, and obviously there will be folks that want to argue and say, well, I know, but well, yes, you're correct. There is nothing that's 100% other than paying taxes and dying.
It's true, very true, yeah.
Or my marksmanship.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, absolutely. Sharpshooter.
Very
expert.
sharp, very
Yes,
sharp.
certainly, yeah. Yeah. 41 out of 40, huh? Absolutely.
Well, actually, no, it was only 30. Probably hit 40 of them. Yeah, took me a couple times, but I got them. But the reality is, it is a process. So if you're seeing things that are making you go, well, you better pay attention to that, because there's a reason you're going, because it's not someone just having a bad day or a bad week.
Yeah.
There's something really going on there, and what we educate people on is how to interpret what you're seeing. How are you relating what you're seeing to what you're seeing tomorrow, to the next week, and realizing that this is a process going on here. And then once we understand that, then the natural next step is, what do we do about it?
Absolutely.
And Jordan is such a godsend, because Jordan, if I'm correct, you've been educating in this field as well.
I have been. Yeah, it's a true passion of mine. Absolutely. I love talking about the subject, which it sounds peculiar to say. You love talking about mental
Something
health.
morbid, right?
Yes, exactly, certainly. But I think we do need to talk about it. We need to take the taboo off of it, the stigma, because it is
Very
a
much.
human emotion. And like you said, people have bad days, and they have a series of bad days, and then that just they become accustomed to that, and then what happens? It becomes the new norm, and we want to try to break that. We talked briefly last week about being our brother's keeper, our battle buddy, our warrior companions, and things, and that's really what it boils down to, is that person knowing that someone is there, and we doing our due diligence to reach out to them instead of waiting for them to reach out to us.
That's so incredible, so eye-opening what you just said about realizing somebody is there.
Absolutely.
That in the very later escalations of the process is total isolation. I'm on my own island, and when I get to the point where I'm starting to defend my perceived own island, it's really, really critical. And the whole thing as it's going so far into the belief that no one is there, no one cares, nobody can be there.
Absolutely.
And what I just hear you say is, we need to let folks know there is someone there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, that without a doubt. And it there's a protocol for that. There truly is. And what works for one may not work for another. Just
Right.
like not everyone can pull off that luxurious hat. So,
Right.
but just knowing, I had shared with you the allegory of the boy and the starfish and the old man. Just I can make a difference to this one. So, and if you listening are curious of that, it's a very good parable that we can help that one. If it's just one, we can help that one person, and we'll certainly do our best to help the others as well. But we can at least educate others. We just like we can't be everywhere at the same time. Only God can do that. We could at least build warriors that will go out there and
Right.
be there for everyone.
Right.
And help them understand what to say, how to do it. What is the right way, and what are the wrong ways as well.
Exactly. I want to go to that next, but I want to address something really quickly. And I've been asked by some of the best financial minds that I know of, how effective is your show? How many people have you helped? Give me some numbers. And, it's like, are you really asking me that? it comes back to exactly what you're talking about with the boy and the starfish, because I don't know who needs to hear the show today. I have no idea. That's God's deal.
Mhm.
You know, all I know is God is leading me to do the show, you know, and the rest is his job, his mission, you know. So I really, you know, I keep coming back because I've been asked that several times by several of the same people, and the answer is always the same. You know, first of all, it'd be a violation of HIPAA if I could tell you, you know, well, John Smith called me and said,
Mhm.
"Thank you, Sal."
Yes,
You know that,
exactly.
you know, so we can't go there. So it's like I tell people, either you get it or you don't, and whichever is fine.
Correct.
You know, if you get it, then yes, you're in the boat rowing with us. If not, well, maybe we'll see you next time around.
Certainly.
But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of throw that in there, uh, and then come right back to what you were talking about as far as going beyond the young boy and the fish and starfish.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I really applaud what you said. Absolutely, Sal. You know, it's this may not be for everyone, and I've done many classes where some individual says to me, Jordan, Sergeant Purcell, whatever it may be, I can't be that person. I can't keep someone safe for now. I can't be the intervener, and they don't have an interest in that, and that's okay too. It's knowing what our limitations are. One of the classes I teach. The hardest thing, it's a 2-day class, the hardest thing for the participants for the workshop is asking the question plainly, matter of fact, calmly, without judgment, you know, all of those things we want, and directly, are you thinking about suicide? A lot of times people say, well, I've asked, are they going to hurt themselves? What we don't understand sometimes is this individual who's at risk, I won't say suicidal, but at risk, and it could happen to any of us at any time.
Right.
If you ask them the question, are you thinking about hurting yourself? That person is so hurt. No, no, I'm not thinking about hurting myself. And I've actually had an example. I know we won't mention names here or anything, but someone had come up to me after I had said that in class, and they said, you know, that actually happened to me. That I talked to a soldier, and I asked the soldier, hey, are you thinking of hurting yourself? The soldier said, no, nope, I'm not going to hurt myself. And then
Not
breath
gonna
of
hurt a
relief.
bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of how they followed it up. They're like, no, I'm going to make sure that when I kill myself, it's not going to hurt at all. And then it's that record scratch. It's like, well, you just said, well, what did you ask them?
Right.
You know, you have to ask them directly. You have to say that word. You have to say the S word. And that way people know. And I've been approached as well. I've been challenged. And I love being challenged in this field because that's how people learn. You know, well, don't you think you're planting the seed? I myself do not. And the reason why is if someone says, well, I wasn't now, but now I'm going to, then there is something there. There is
Right.
definitely something there. And that can almost be a conversation piece. I've asked people before if they're suicidal. Are they thinking about suicide? Are they thinking about ending their life? And they have said to me, well, no, why would you think that? I said, well, I care very deeply about you. Some of the things I'm seeing are a cause for concern. I'm here to help. It opens up a conversation. And it does. Sometimes people get mad at me. Now, again, you know, we don't just walk down the street, you know, to everybody we pass, you know, are you suicidal? Are you
Right.
suicidal?
Right.
And that's why I say about the wrong way of doing it. But just having that recognition, that gut feeling. You know, I very much follow Dr. Carl Gustav Jung. He was a protege. He was a partner with Sigmund Freud, and he talks about the unconscious mind. And I affirm the collective unconscious, and I believe that sometimes things out there that can't be explained. You know, that phone call in the middle of the night, that hey, are you okay? Or just running into someone you haven't seen in a while and just unloading on them just emotionally. You know, things happen for a reason, and us being there. So that's what I would challenge the listeners. That's what I challenge you, and that's what I challenge myself. Is not just assume, they're okay. If something was wrong, they would tell me. Not necessarily. They've got so much on their mind, and they don't want to hurt anyone else. They don't want to hurt themselves anymore, and they know what it feels like to be at the bottom. And, you know, we talked about the scale of 1 to 10 last week, and sometimes people do have a series of 5s, and to them that's too much for them to bear. Some people can live at a 2, but why should they? So if we see, we always see it. You know, if you see something, say something.
Right.
So yes.
Well, you mentioned You mentioned something just before I got into, numbers and the best financial minds. You hit on not doing this alone. And where I want to go with this is one of the things that we tell people and teach is don't take it upon yourself to be the intervener.
Mhm.
You know, and I say that with all good heart because the first thing someone close is if they understand it's like, let me help. Well, the best way you can help is not to do anything at the moment because we never know when we might be the ones pulling that trigger, causing the trigger to be pulled is the way I want to phrase it. So what we want to do is we want to caution against wanting to do it yourself, wanting to do it alone, and we want to encourage beginning to build a safe intervention team. Am I kind of on the right track there?
Without a doubt, certainly.
Okay. Okay.
As I had mentioned, as you've mentioned, Sal and Jordan can't be everywhere at once. We can't always necessarily pick up our phone. Whether we admit it or not, we do need to sleep. We need to eat. We need to spend time with our family. We need to have our own. So that's not to say that we forget about others, but
Right.
it's educating that person. So when we do a safe intervention, having that information, if we are that person that wants to get a little wet going in the river that the person is proverbial drowning in, and they may not know, they may think they're on a light swim, but it's we have to get a little wet as well, but we don't have to harm ourselves in the process. But we should have that 988 press 1
Right.
for the vet center, the 800-273 talk. There's text features as well out there. It's just arming yourself, getting to know that person, getting to know who is important to them. If they tell you that they just lost a loved one, you can't tell them, hey, call your parents. Maybe they
Right.
can help you.
Yeah.
Or, hey, why don't you call your wife?
I wouldn't know that wasn't the person they just lost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We got, like you're saying, we have to listen.
we have to listen.
We have to have empathy and hey, let me really hear what you're saying before I start throwing out suggestions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Active listening and then reflective listening as well. That, it's impossible for someone to talk and listen at the same time. I know we'd like to think we have that superpower, but in the conversations I've had, say back to the person what they say to you. If they say, I'm hopeless, helpless, down, depressed, and I have nothing to live for. If they tell you that, say it back to them verbatim. So you're telling me you're hopeless, helpless, down, depressed, and have nothing to live for. And I can attest that there's been times that someone said, well, that's not what I said. No, I didn't say that. It's like, that's exactly what you just said.
Right.
I'm not trying to gaslight you. I'm not trying to invalidate you. I'm trying to validate what you're saying. And just them hearing it, because sometimes we all know that sometimes people say things without thinking it through or even listening to what they're saying. But that reflective listening, that person hearing what they just said, that could be the catalyst that they're like, I do need some help. And it all goes back.
There's power in hearing your own words.
It is.
There is a lot of power in hearing your own words because while we're saying it or even before we're saying it, it's a sentence in our mind.
It is, yes.
It's not that tangible. It's not real. Yet when we say it, it takes on a little life.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we hear it said back to us, it's like, whoa, and then we listen up. It's like, not only did I really say that, but did I really mean that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, correct. Yeah. How many times have we said something without truly meaning it? Whether it's in anger or just trying to give someone an affirmation. I say it too, like, give me a call anytime. My phone is always on. You have to be ready for that. If you have that missed call because you were sleeping, I knew what I said. The person interpreted it differently. So it's very important to do that reflective listening. And I can't underscore it enough with the whole networking aspect, just knowing who is there, how to get a hold of them, and having that proverbial ace up your sleeve. And I love your introduction to the show today. We talked about all of the individuals and how closely connected everyone is. Almost like a 6 degrees of separation. You had said about Taylor Swift, Be Bare Naturals, and Josh, and Grade A Holloway. And you. I wouldn't have met you had it not been through networking. And we got to talking. We had a lot more in common. So, putting the phone down and just having a real life conversation. Remember those when you would sit down and actually talk to someone face to face, and not just the over the
Right. Yeah.
phone. So.
It's like such a throwaway conversation.
Yeah.
So disposable. I can hold it. You're important to me as long as I'm hitting keys.
Mhm.
The minute I'm done, it's like, okay, you don't even exist anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What a world, huh?
And text messages should never, in my opinion, they should never be a serious conversation because you don't get the tone, you don't
Exactly.
get the nonverbals, you don't know.
You don't get the inflection.
Yeah.
You don't really get the content. Yeah,
Correct.
I tell that to a lot of people, and then they give me back well, I like to have the written record to reflect on. And it's like, you know what? That's a valid point. That's a valid point. So, let's still speak, but let's keep the important, the hard stuff. Let's keep that conversational verbal.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can confirm it in text and say, I understood what you meant to be this. Well, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And someone who is at risk, they have a story to tell. If they are thinking about suicide, do they really want to write a book? And then they have to type their own words down. And how many times have you typed like, well, I don't really want to say that, versus what you say in the moment?
Right.
Well, you just unload, you dump. It is unfiltered. There is no record of it. You can't go back and say, well, before I hit the send button, which is basic text etiquette, is make sure everything is correct.
Yeah.
So just getting that raw, real story, almost unfiltered, that way that person can get it all out.
I will actually tell people, if you really value our conversation, you really want to hear what I have to say, then let's talk, because I'm not going to sit here and text endlessly. It just, it's just not. The value isn't there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there's just something about that presence, just to see someone else.
I want
expression.
I like to be able to look you in the eyes when we're talking.
Exactly.
Not wonder, did you think he understood what I really meant? It's like, no, so and I totally agree with you. Text habits has its place. Hey, I'm like really critical. Okay, boom, I get the message. We need to not continue text, and we need to visit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was a wicked time saver right there. So it definitely has its benefits, but I can't help you through text.
Correct.
Certainly.
Yeah. I've been in those instances as well where I've gotten the text message, and I called that person and said, "Hey, do you mind if I come over?" Of course, I get their permission to call, and I'll stay on the phone with them until I get to their house and stay as long as I need. And again, that's not for everyone, but that's for me. And I don't necessarily do it for me. I do it for them, but at the end of the day, I do it for me as well. I just like the commercial back in the day about Rogaine. I'm not just a
I'm not just a client.
Yeah.
I'm not just a client. I'm also a president.
Yes, I'm not just the president, but also a client. Believe it or not, Sal.
Victor Siam. I believe. No, he was the guy that did the. Victor Kiam was the Schick.
Okay.
The razor guy, Victor Kiam. Yeah. I forget what this guy's name was. Yeah. I'm not just a client. That's how he would say it. I'm not just a client.
Yeah.
I'm also the president. It's like, really, dude. You need some more. But yeah.
Absolutely. And would you look at that, Sal? This is one thing I tell, I'd like the listeners to know, and my participants in the workshop is, in this suicide prevention, intervention, post-vention class, it's okay to be happy. It's okay to laugh. And when you're with that person, I would encourage that, is to have something such as Rogaine. Because that's what I thrive on, and I've found that as well. There's something about the endorphins, having someone laugh, having someone feel validated for the first time. So, and that goes back to the right and the wrong way, is do what feels right to you. There's could be some salty first sergeants that, or sergeants major that'll give you the knife hand and tell you the way it is, and some people respond to that, and some people need a little bit more love. Let's just say, we won't say coddling or kid gloves, but we'll say they need a little bit more love, more or less guidance, as they say. So maybe that person just needs to proverbial snap out of it, but sometimes they just need a little bit more. It can vary on many, many things. But I myself have suffered with mental health, probably for the better part of my life, or should I say the worst part? But you can't grow unless you know where you've been. And
Right.
and I'm sure on another episode we'll talk about masking emotions and who doesn't do that, right? Like, oh, just keep it
Yeah.
all together, just
Yeah,
a stiff upper lip.
I was raised, and then I was educated and trained to, well, congratulations, welcome to reality. Now go to work.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but no, but get your ass back to work. Get going. Get out
Yeah.
there. Get in the field. Yeah.
With a full developing prefrontal cortex, right? You're just
Yeah,
still trying to
exactly,
learn
right?
along the way, certainly.
Oh, that was such a brilliant. We got to revisit that on another
Absolutely,
show. That
yeah.
was so important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important. I want to add a caveat here. I think we're almost out of time.
Okay.
But you brought up the humor and the laugh and it, like stimulating the endorphins. And I just want to let everybody know that while I have a great sense of humor, and yes, I do stand up comedy as well, but I don't want anyone to misunderstand my humor for a lack of seriousness
Agreed.
or a lack of understanding.
Mhm.
I have held people dying in my arms. I have provided things to have people not followed through with suicide. So I take this very, very seriously.
Agreed.
I just have this alpha type A funny personality.
Certainly.
So I just want to let folks know I'm aware of my humor. It's not that I'm taking this less than serious.
Agreed. I totally agree, and it's good that you say that, Sal. It's important to understand how to compartmentalize one's feelings. We all know in the military with the dark humor, the medics are the worst. The flight medics are the worst.
Got a live one over there?
Yeah.
Well, give me another one.
Exactly, and that could be a catharsis. But the respect is always there, absolutely, and that's what I think we're trying to say, and I think that's what you're trying to say is just because you are a stand-up comic, just because I have a sense of humor, there's a right place and a right time for everything, and that it goes back to know who you are, know what you can do, and know what your network is, and work within your strengths. While if you get a little too close to the weaknesses, I should say, of yourself, like hey, like don't make a gift wrapped lie. Tell someone the truth, even if it's not as attractive. You just tell someone, I am not good with this, but I know someone who is.
Right.
So, and that's that own humility as well. Or it's a situation where I can't be that person right now. So, but yeah, just knowing who you are yourself. Because again, like we said, if they're in the river of thoughts of suicides and they're about to go over the waterfall, we don't want to go down with that person, but we might have to get a little wet in the process to do that mental health first aid.
Right. If there is, if there's something that we can leave with our listeners and viewers through this week until we get back together Saturday, is there something that comes to mind that you may want to give our folks to chew on or ponder or at least carry through with it to the week?
Don't put off what can be done in a minute. I think that's a very important thing. So for one's own mental health, self-care, if you think I should reach out to this person, or I should make my bed, or like I should probably wash that dish in the sink, it's never about the dish in the sink that sometimes could be the catalyst, but use the 1 minute drills. That if it takes a minute, do it right then and there. Don't put off a minute. So because again, we're creatures of habit. Life gets in the way. So that's what I would tell the listeners is it's more than just interventions, more than just that. It's taking care of yourself and doing it one minute at a time. So if I think of something and I'm like, okay, I got to do this, how long it'll take me? It takes a minute to make my bed. Because at the end of the day, I've accomplished something and I can come home. I start my day by making the bed. I end my day by pulling the covers back. I take a minute to text friends. So just proper time management, because 1 minute makes a lot of difference. 1 minute could be the difference between a red light or a green light, which can be a difference between 2 minutes late at work, things like that. So don't,
or even not arriving at work.
Yeah. Don't negate the power of the minute. There's many minutes in the day, many seconds in the day, which is another thing I would like to talk about when we talk a little more about resilience. But I think I've driven this point home enough. But repetition is the key to adult learning. But to the listeners, behold the power of that minute. Don't put off for another minute that text, that phone call, that coffee, whatever it may be, making your bed, just better time management, and then you'll have at least accomplished something to get that dopamine, to get those endorphins, to feel, God forbid, like nothing went right today. I still made the bed. I may not do everything, but I made a difference to this one. So,
yeah, stay in the minute, stay present,
absolutely, yeah.
stay mindful.
Absolutely.
I'm not judgmental.
Yeah.
I think if I were to suggest anything, it would be to be careful, be mindful of being judgmental.
Absolutely.
And that is one of my biggest traps. I can be there in a second and make all kind of diagnoses, all kind of advanced thoughts about a situation or a person based on simply a judgment.
Yes.
And then it's like I got to remind myself, to live in a judgment-free zone, man.
Certainly. Yeah.
There's that fitness chain that promotes that, judgment-free zone to work out in. And at first I thought that was, how cliche, and then as I'm like growing in my education and my interflections and learning, it's like, what, being non-judgmental is very, very powerful.
Certainly.
It takes you off of autopilot, which for me is big, because I'm 5 miles down the road on autopilot,
Absolutely.
So yeah, to be non-judgmental and just, what if? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm right? What do they have to say?
Yeah.
It really takes a lot of stress out. I find, it relieves a lot of stress from me. It still doesn't make me look any better in this hat. But
You couldn't look better in that hat. It's impossible.
another $20. Yeah. But thank you for visiting the show. Our greatest global family of all time, of viewers and listeners. We love you. We love you. We would not have any show, without you. And the fact that it's not just regional, it's not just local, but we're actually coast to coast and global. Canada, Mexico, Baja California, Philippines, Yemen. Where else? Africa. Over where Idi Amin used to be the dictator. We lost that chopper, the Black Hawk. But yeah, so the fact that we are now global is just God's movement, man. God's way of saying, hey, we got to keep it going, and
Yeah, certainly.
doing great.
And still so much to talk about. The car shows, the VA's coming up, so we have so much. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. You got
We barely hit on it,
You got to leave them
barely
one more.
hit.
That's what they always say.
Yeah.
Just like Shauna, the taste is free. You'll have to tune in next time
There
for
you
the
go.
rest. So,
You know what? I think what we'll do is we'll really channelize folks. We'll say, here is a Shauna cake.
eat it live.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
That's this week's contest, folks. Okay. I promised on the announcement that we were going to be doing contests, viewer and listener contests for the upcoming summer, all the things that we have going on this summer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you with this contest. The 2 top listeners who write in to let me know what the design will look like on Shauna's cake next show. Will it have hearts or will it not?
Okay.
Fair enough?
Fair enough for me.
Will the cake about this size, will this have hearts in the icing part? See, I'm going to really narrow it down so you can't say, well, you didn't say icing. Maybe it was on the bottom. But if the top part of Shauna's cake has the icing, right, and then has a heart in it, the 2 top people that can tell me what color those hearts are will win a $10 certificate to Shauna's Cakes the next time you're in.
Sounds great to me.
Okay.
Am I allowed to compete?
No.
I have to just.
No. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What was your name again? That's right, Jordan. Thank, thank you, Jordan.
It's
And
my
as
pleasure.
always, thank you to our great global, greatest of all time family of viewers and listeners. We wouldn't be here without you. And truly, I love you. And thank you. We will see you next week for Saturday Morning Live with Sal Santori.